All right, this was an episode that was requested by multiple people. So Kyle Muncy joining us back on the podcast, licensing brand. He covers it all. So Kyle, thanks so much for hopping back on.
Appreciate it, Jared. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so the main requests that a lot of people were reaching out to have you back on revolves around trading cards, which have really picked up steam in the collectible marketplace over the past couple of years, and now with NIL, it's becoming a whole even bigger product category, I'd say. So we could start by jumping into that a little bit, and then we could touch on a couple other things. So. I guess I'll just start with this one for you. I know you've been at UConn for a while. Trading cards have been around for a while. Take me through like what maybe some of the early days of trading cards might have been like, compared to what it's like right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think those of us of a certain age, I mean, I'm in my mid 50s and grew up with baseball trading cards and then maybe football, a little bit of basketball, but predominantly baseball trading cards. And I think for a lot of us at UConn, and I've spent, for 17 to 20 years of my career at UConn in the SID office, and trading cards were really, something that our marketing group did used as a giveaway. They were a fantastic asset and activation, and I've got some here that they pulled from the archives. I got some old first Union Bank. This is women's basketball from 95, 96. So
Okay.
Jen Rosati up there in the top corner, Jamel Elliott's on there. We used to do we did some legend sets for men's basketball over the years. Petro Pantry was a big sponsor back in the day.
Okay.
Um, and we really used to go through, year over year over year. We do full trading card sets, 91, 92 men's basketball, 94, 95 men's basketball. Really, and great. I mean, just really cool cards.
Yeah, those are
The
detailed.
sponsor, it was great. I mean, a lot of information. A fantastic giveaway, and I would say, like, I think this is from, let's say, well, Rip Hamilton's on there, so and so's College. So this is probably right around that. Could be looks yeah, it looks like Monquencio's in it. So it's so 96, 97 in that range. And
Okay.
um yeah, it's I mean, fantastic. Like it was like for marketing partners, it was such a home run because
Yeah.
it was such an easy one to do. Conventional printing was just like churning those days.
Yeah.
So pretty easy to do it, give them away at a game. And people were pretty psyched about it, but it was a giveaway. It was
Yeah.
always a giveaway. We weren't trying to sell trading cards in the bookstore or anything along those lines. And obviously you fast forward to today, um, and we've had relatively significant trading card agreements in place from a licensing perspective with Panini and with Topps over the last, let's say 8 to 10 years. And, predominantly, obviously before 2021 or 2022, those trading cards as it related to UConn, they were top draft pick cards
Yeah.
for men's basketball or for football. That was really it. It was so a lot of the old guy stuff, a lot of Ray Allen, a lot of Rip Hamilton, a lot of Karan Butler, the cards that you all see out there every day. The ones that have really, really made their way into the market and into eBay and all that. So, now obviously with NIL, I think those companies have all, and not only just Panini and Topps, but we've got On It, that is another partner that has, that's doing fully licensed sets of the teams. With Topps, they did a lot of cards this year where, like this would be a really, really good example. So they did the Alex Caravan card,
Yep.
and they did sort of these moment cards, right? So they did a Liam McNeely one right after the Gonzaga game, and then
Yep.
they did a solo ball when we beat Marquette, and so like they would do these cards. Sarah Strong was on a couple different ones. There was another one from McNeely. This was the McNeely after the Creighton, the game at Creighton,
Yep.
the Creighton. So you get that type of stuff where Topps would, it's sort of that breaking T model, right? So it's something happens, but instead of a T-shirt, they just bang out a card, and boom, you get that card in the market. You get it right in the market immediately, and it's something that for those collectors that they're kind of chasing, right? So see
Yeah.
if they can chase it, and then I think with whether it's on it, which we've got like on it did full sets of men's basketball, so it's like a full
Yep.
team set, came in a little package, and it's on sale on their website. It's been around, and then with women's basketball, they have done the same thing. But then after they won the championship, they said, you know what? Let's do a special box.
Very
We'll
cool.
put the team set in the box. Comes in the fancy, the
Case.
fancy case. The cards are all really cool. They're all, I think for the most part, I think the only quirkiness about trading cards as it relates to NIL is there is that opportunity there for student athletes to sign deals with those particular companies. For the most part, the deals they're not exclusive. So
Yep.
they're just signing deals and they're able to sign and they get compensated for signing cards. We've had a couple deals where student athletes would maybe be an exclusive partner of that particular company. And so, which obviously presents a challenge if you have another company that wants to put together a set
The
of,
team said, yeah.
cards, and and so a certain student athlete or student athletes can't be in it. But generally speaking, I think the great thing about the trading cards has been, um, it's provided opportunity. We talk about licensing,
Yeah.
whether it's jerseys or jerseys or trading cards or whatever. Sarah Strong, for this card, she gets a royalty, right?
Yeah.
So just like the university gets a royalty. Well, royalties are passive income. They're just a small percentage of whatever the total cost of the item is. But active income, you sign, we pay you to put your signature on it. Like that's where the real money is. So you've
Yeah.
got active income that's being built in to these particular trading card deals, and it works out fantastically. Now the next evolution is, and Panini I think has started to roll these out. I think I've seen some links to them. They're going to be coming on sale in the bookstore. They're going to be on sale on shop.uconhuskies.com and also at games coming in the fall. But Panini's going to be doing these box sets and be doing, I think they call them blasters.
Yeah. I think so.
I'm not a card guy, right? So, but they're going to be doing these sets where, it is going to be a fantastic mix of current student athletes, former student athletes, potentially legendary coaches or current coaches, different, all sorts of different things. And as you can imagine, some with signatures,
Yeah.
right? So it's going to be those little, those nuggets that everybody's looking to find. And I think, I'm certainly super anxious to see Panini, really get something out into the market. I think there's been this build. Obviously, the folks from Topps have been great with a lot of
In
the
the moment
stuff
one.
that they've gotten out from the moment, the moments.
Yeah.
But listen, it's we've got a great history. We've got a great set of fans that that obviously embrace that particular collectible. And it's, again, I'm sure that if you're chasing something that's signed by a certain individual, that can start getting pricey. But if you're just looking to collect some cards, and get a set, and I don't have this card or that card or whatever, yeah, it can get pricey, but I think a pretty manageable collectible type of thing that that fans really seem to be kind of re-embracing now as it, especially as it evolves into NIL.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to see you hold up those sheets of the old marketing cards and see that a concept like that is still just really relevant today, just in a slightly different format and style.
Yeah, super cool. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure. Sure.
I know that, just when you're talking about collectibles, you're talking about some of the players signing them. It seems like that market has just really taken off recently, especially on the signed gear and signed collectibles. Is that something you're seeing from your side of things in terms of the popularity around those items?
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, whether it's trading cards or other potential memorabilia, there are certainly a lot of conversations around, what's the market for game used,
Yeah.
jerseys or things along those lines. I definitely think that it's something you just got to be cautiously optimistic about it, right? See what you can do to be as strategic and as open to opportunities as you can. But I think, I think you're still seeing, even in some of the early, if you think back 2 or 3 years ago, the quarterback for Clemson, did a deal with Dr. Pepper and like, and had a terrible season, right? And so, you look at those, so it's like, okay, well, is somebody going to invest in 100 jerseys and try to get them churned through for game used opportunities with somebody signing them? Well, what happens
Yeah.
if that particular individual doesn't hit the mark, right? Shohei Ohtani is a proven commodity, or
Right.
Aaron Judge, or so companies like Fanatics Collectibles, you haven't even seen that much of them like really diving into college, because it's like they're just printing money
Yeah.
with
With what they got. Yeah.
with like and anybody that's in this part of the country remembers Steiner Collectibles, and
Yup.
we had a lot of conversations with them about things like that. But listen, I think for us, not just whether it's trading cards or jerseys or other memorabilia, pieces of the floor, like we saw with the Gamble
Yup.
project, little things like that, where it's there are a lot of really really cool ways to show your fandom, which is great. Hopefully, people continue to sort of support it, and the economics, kind of continue to work in the university's favor, and all universities' favor. But it's definitely wildly different than it was, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years ago.
Yeah. I know one thing that you mentioned a little bit was some of like the top draft pick cards before this whole NIL age. Has the level of involvement that the university has done with these trading card companies kind of just really picked up over these past couple of years since NIL compared to, say what you did, 5 to 10 years ago?
It's so funny. I would equate it to this. So, up until NIL came in 2021, 2022, I don't think there was any one singular part of the business that we spent more time talking about and just churning over than jerseys, right? Everybody wanted to talk about why aren't there more jerseys available? Why does it take so long? How come this one's not available? How come this one's not for sale? All those types of things, right? And jerseys make up about like 5% of our business,
Yeah.
right? But all we talked about was jerseys, 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 right? And so now you flip into NIL, you get some great partners like Athletes Thread, Campus Inc., Nike's even into NIL. You've got partners that are churning out jerseys, right? Nobody talks about jerseys anymore. All we talk about trading cards, trading cards, trading cards, right? Because it's, I would say, I mean, it's a much easier business. I mean,
Yeah.
jerseys are really hard. Jerseys take a long time. Jerseys change. Jerseys are more expensive. You're spending $130, $140 on a jersey. That's a big difference than spending however much it is to get the box set of On It cards, right? So it's definitely but again, and definitely a good moneymaker for everybody involved. As I said, the biggest difference maker on trading cards is massive active income
Yeah.
opportunities for the student athletes, because going to card shows and doing signing deals is really really simple. I've had student athletes come to my office, Fanatics or Tops or Panini shipping cards in student athletes signing the cards, sending everything back. Did the same thing with Coach Calhoun. Like
Yeah.
it's really pretty straightforward, pretty simple, and really going to be exciting for fans to be able to get their hands on those types of things.
Just like Alex, grilling season is back. And while our favorite team reloads, it's your turn to load up the grill with Martin Rosel's, the best meats Connecticut has to offer. Since 1928, Martin Rosel's has been crafting top quality hot dogs, kielbasa, and sausages using original recipes and only the finest ingredients. So as the warm weather returns, remember, both championship teams and great cookouts start with the right lineup. Look for Rosel's at your local grocery store or stop by their retail store in New Britain. And now, back to the episode. How unique is UConn positioned compared to some of these other universities that are in the trading guard space, just given the success of both men's and women's basketball and being able to capitalize on having multiple sports there that have success in that space?
Yeah, I don't think there's any different. I don't think there's any doubt that we are. I mean, listen, we're unique, right? We are a unicorn of sorts, based on where we sit in the country, the success that our basketball programs have had, which is unparalleled. You know, and we are legitimately famous as a
Yeah.
as a basketball program, men and women. And I think the value that those women's basketball players bring to those particular companies are dying for visible female role models
Mhm.
and superstars out there. And we just had the most famous one on the planet get a championship and leave, and we got two coming right behind her, and probably more than that, because I'm not an expert in recruiting or anything like that. But I know how excited people are about AZ and about
Right.
Sarah. I know how excited people are about men's basketball. The fundamental difference with the men and the women is, with the women, there's at least maybe a little bit more of a, they're going to be around
I was just gonna
for,
say,
as
yeah,
a listen, Liam McNeely was, was incredibly fantastic and well known and prominent,
yeah,
but also there's sort of this, is he going to leave? Okay, and so
yeah,
it keeps everybody from really like pushing all their chips in, right?
yeah,
Here, like the chips are all going in on AZ because she's going to be a stud, and on Sarah because they know she's the
yeah.
next and is going to be around for a while. So I think that's we definitely, it's a uniqueness that I think, there's not, I mean, there's no schools in the country that had this with,
Right. Yeah.
across both sports, that many cards. Like, it's pretty cool.
And I know when it comes to all things that involve the UConn brand, there's always companies trying to take advantage, making knockoffs and things like that. Are you seeing a lot of the knockoff stuff in this collectible card space?
Yeah, I mean, there definitely is. We're really lucky. We have a great partner in a company called Counterfind that works with us, and really sweeps the internet on a regular basis. And so, we have a full dashboard that we can pull up, and it's tagging, it's catching, it's sweeping, and we're taking down hundreds, if not thousands, of items, whether it's trading cards or counterfeit T-shirts or other items. I'm sure all of us have the same algorithm. We're all getting the stuff that's pumping through our Instagram feed and all of our different feeds. But though we're lucky, it's never going to stop. It's
Yeah.
called whack-a-mole. I mean, you're just whacking it and trying to knock those counterfeiters down, but they're, unquestionably, it's, they know there's, the good thing about it is, I think, especially in the trading card space with folks that are collectible fans, um there's a, there's a nuance about it. If you're looking at a lousy one,
Yeah.
if you're looking at one that isn't, like, isn't legit, right? So I think it's, even I don't have a sophisticated eye as it relates to it, but when you see something that's counterfeit, pretty quickly that it is. So,
Yeah.
I would say, I mean, if it's not Topps or Panini or on it, like it's pretty, because even some of the old familiar brands like Upper Deck or some others,
Yeah.
like a lot of that is just sort of like recycled old knockoff stuff. And so if you see it with, Paige Becker's on it, then
Yeah.
it's probably been fabricated. Yeah.
How does it work when it comes to working with past players around these cards and, that using them in UConn apparel and things like that?
Yeah, some of them have deals with the companies. They
Okay.
did, they might have done a really good job to do a deal with the company. The companies will have deals with the players associations, and in many cases, those players association deals can sort of carry over a little bit into retirement. We also have a group licensing program for former basketball players, men's and
Oh,
women,
okay.
with and that's why on Athletes Thread you can go and get jerseys of some of the former players that
Yeah.
aren't in the NBA or weren't in the NBA anymore. So I think that's a space where, listen, I think we know that someone like Ray Allen or Rip Hamilton or Kemba Walker for that matter would have done pretty well in the NIL era. So it's pretty cool to be able to do some things with them. And I think we're especially on the women's basketball side, really cognizant of the fact that we've got, between Paige and Brianna, superstar WNBA players that are former players of ours, but then also, Sue and Maya and Diana, who just retired, and Swin Cash, they're Hall of Famers, they're
Yep.
going to be Hall of Famers, and really make sure that that folks are able to celebrate that too and celebrate that connection to UConn. It's we're lucky to have good partners and willing former players to participate.
Yeah. I want to move on a little bit from the cards because the last time I had you on, we were talking the premiere of EA Sports and NCAA
Mhm.
football. So you've got a year of that in the books. Overall, just curious to pick your brain, satisfied with how that process went, and hopefully getting ready for another year of it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody associated with EA or with college licensing or college football could have imagined how successful it was going to be. I mean, it's the most successful video game of all time,
Yeah.
like just period. It and um I think there's two parts of it. I think the authenticity of the student athletes, really being able to be a part of it,
Yeah.
I think was a big deal. But that ability to be your favorite team or to beat the team you hate or, those types of things, I think, they did a really, really fantastic job with it. Those EA Sports guys, I mean, it is unbelievable how much work goes into that, the amount of emails and questions and information that they're looking for from us on a regular basis to try to make sure that the game is as up to date as possible and that they have as many players opted in as possible. So, excited about year two. Excited that the student athletes are going to get compensated at a little better level
Mhm.
than they did in the past. And I think I hope the success continues because it's eventually going to lead to a college basketball version.
There we go.
Um, I don't think it's ever going to be the way the college football version is. Like I don't see it being a 300 school game.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be very similar to what we've seen the last several years, where you sort of get that college mode out of the NBA game,
Yeah.
and so there's going to be, but I mean, the Huskies are going to be in it, so we're not worried about that part of it.
Yeah.
We know there's going to be a place for UConn in that game. We know if there's any women's teams in it at all, we're going to be the one, and we're certainly going to be the first one, and see how it goes. And I think, but the more successful the football game is, I think the better a chance there is that, hopefully within the next, 2 to 4 years, we'll see something from a college basketball standpoint too. But, those guys, I mean, they got their hands full with that college football game for
I,
sure. So
I bet.
I think they're just focused on really crushing year two and kind of see where it goes from there.
Yeah, I know we've been just talking about how this space has progressed, even just looking back at those old trading cards, you've got, all the advancements now in NIL landscape that just seems to always be changing. What do you kind of have like on your plate as you kind of look forward over the next, like year or so as some of like the exciting things you could see coming in this space?
Boy, I hope that, that for, what I'm hopeful of is that obviously there's still a lot of unknowns relative to the way revenue sharing is going to
Yeah.
play out. And, but what I'm hopeful of is that we'll really be able to integrate um, naturally and and positively for the brands that we associate with so this natural connection to the teams, it's always been sort of this weirdness of, Dunkin' Donuts is the official, the UConn runs on Dunkin'.
Yeah.
Okay, sure, but does it really? Like, and now I think that ability to really, really fold student athletes into it, I think there have been brands, we have great brand partners like Coca-Cola that have really kind of taken their time, kind of let's see how this all plays out. Well, I think what they're starting to see, I mean, you couldn't watch the Final Four without seeing commercials with Paige Beckers in them and seeing different things like that. And I think, now it's so I think the brands are saying, okay, you know what, let's be really strategic about this. Let's figure out where we want to invest. Let's figure out the programs to invest in.
Mhm.
And I mean, again, people may think basketball capital of the world is a marketing phrase, but it's not. I mean, we literally, we are when brands are looking at doing marketing campaigns for March Madness, they
Yeah.
start at UConn and they branch out from there. Like it's because they know one or both of us is going to be there and be in it to win it. And so I think that's where you want to be. And I think that's where we're gonna get. I do think that from a merchandise NIL perspective, I think Nike is continuing to, really invest in potential opportunities. We're going to see, in addition to name and number jerseys, we're going to start seeing jerseys this year. We're going to start seeing other things. I think we're really hopeful of not only with current student athletes, but really starting to fold and do some things with some of the more recent graduates of the men's basketball and women's basketball program from an NIL
Yeah.
perspective. So, really could be some cool things that'll, I think, be of interest to folks as we go forward.
Nice. I'm definitely more of a Jersey guy, so I will
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Aren't we all? Exactly.
I'll be excited to see those out there.
For sure.
But Kyle, I'll wrap with this one. I know always some changes at the bookstore, always got some new stuff in there. For anyone who wants to come and take a ride up to campus while it's a little quieter right now, what's good at the bookstore?
Yeah, I mean, we really, the folks at the bookstore have done a great job, and we've had some great brand partners, so since basketball season, the regular season kind of scaled down near the end of February and into early March. We have a Vineyard Vines concept shop. We're the first school in the country to have a Vineyard Vines shop in our bookstore, and really excited that we now have about almost 1,000 square foot Nike concept shop in the bookstore. So, if you're familiar with the Nike outlets and
Yep.
Nike shops at different places, it's got a lot of that sort of that look and feel, those fixtures and those types of things. And, the best part about it is it's a pretty significant piece of real estate, which means, we're gonna have to make sure that we get products in there. And we've got more and more stuff coming. We're really working, pushing hard with Nike and with Branded Custom Sportswear, who's our Nike retail partner, to make sure that we're, not only are we getting the core items out there that people want to buy on an annual basis, the things that they may see on the football sideline or see folks wearing, but working hard to say, okay, Coach Hurley and his staff, or Coach Oriema and their staff, they want to wear certain things. They want, the things that we've always called team issue, right?
Yeah.
But what can we do to come up with, like we did last year, sort of the coaches collection type of things? Like, if coaches like to wear a certain thing, let's come up with some designs. Let's give them to the coaches. Let's get them wearing them, and then let's get them on sale so that people can, really wear exactly what the team is wearing and what the coaches are wearing. And so, having that space in the bookstore to really, really highlight that, and then to, again, got to recognize the fact that there's a lot of Huskies all over the country want to buy stuff online. I'm working hard to make sure that we get those things up there. But even just the littlest things like the bomber jackets that, when they launched, Coach Hurley was wearing it. It was just the Husky logo. Everybody loved it. And then all of a sudden, we're rolling that one out with the 1959 Jonathan. We're rolling that one out with the Hook C. Different things like that. But listen, we're really lucky. BCS is a great partner of ours with Nike, and has really allowed us to execute some things for our fans for Nike and UConn that are definitely, I think, being well received, selling great, and just sort of the start of things.
Awesome. Well, Kyle, I appreciate it as always. Thanks so much for coming on. This was fun. Get to dive into some of this stuff. We'll have to have you back on, and we'll do an update on all this stuff maybe
Well,
later in the season.
we'll have to do a pre-holiday show or something. Make sure everybody's got
Exactly.
their holiday list together.
I like it. We'll
Great.
do a little infomercial on here. We'll get some stuff out there. So Kyle,
Sounds great.
appreciate it as always. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Jared.